Hey guys, welcome to our weekly Friday video, and sometimes we have a bonus video on Tuesday, but today we're checking out the AMD Ryzen 3 2200G. Now, I was looking at buying a few more modern parts, mostly at the lower end of the food chain, so that we have something to compare against older systems. And yeah, also for me to stay a little bit up to date with what's going on with the modern computer parts. Now, I live in Australia, and so let's have a look at some of the modern budget options available. All the prices are in Australian dollars. The most affordable seems to be the Athlon 200 GE and the Pentium Gold G5400. But both of these are dual-core processors, and in my opinion, not really something you should consider when putting together a modern system, even if you are on a budget. Now, the i3-8100 does have 4 cores, but it's a little bit expensive, and I was a bit surprised that there wasn't an Intel CPU around the $150 mark. It was either getting the dual-core Pentium for a little over 100 or go straight to the i3, which costs around 200. Now, with the AMD processors, the 2200G is cheaper than the i3. It also has 4 cores, but the real highlight is that it has very capable integrated graphics. Now, I did consider the 2400G, which adds 4 additional threads and has even faster graphics, but it costs around 50% more than the 2200G, so I didn't think it was as good value. Now, if you can spend a little bit more, you can consider going for an i5. But personally, I would likely pick the Ryzen 5 2600. I've actually got my eyes on that processor, but with all the rumors about the 3000 series of CPUs, I think I'm going to wait a little bit. Most of my videos on the channel are to do with older parts, but it's pretty well known that with Ryzen, and especially when you're using integrated graphics, that you should be using fast memory. So I reached out to TimeTech and asked if they could supply us some DDR4 memory, and they sent us their extreme performance 16GB DDR4 3200 MHz CL16 memory kit. This memory worked great for this project. Loading the BIOS defaults configures the RAM to run at only 2400 MHz, but all you have to do is select the DOCP option, and that will activate a 3200 MHz profile in the BIOS, and now we're running at the full speed. So is it worth getting the faster memory? Here we have some Cinebench R15 results. On the left we can see the 2200G with DDR4 2400, and on the right side with the faster 3200 MHz RAM. So there's a slight improvement, but it gets a lot more interesting when we look at some benchmarks using the integrated graphics. Here we have Rise of the Tomb Raider at 720p. And we can clearly see that the faster memory makes a massive difference. That is a boost of roughly 20% faster performance. And we also have some gameplay footage side by side. We have Dirt 3 on the left side, the RAM at 2400, on the right side at 3200 MHz, and we can clearly see the difference. So if you're using the onboard graphics for gaming, it definitely pays to go for the faster memory. Now, I also wanted to compare what the performance is like when using just a single memory module compared to using 2 modules in dual channel configuration. And the difference is absolutely massive. So once again, if you're using the integrated graphics, then you should really be using a dual channel memory kit. And I'm using Dirt 3 again on the left side with a single stick of RAM, and on the right side 2 sticks of RAM in dual channel configuration. We can clearly see that the dual channel configuration is a lot faster. It's also nice to see DDR4 memory prices have come down. You're looking at $99 for this memory kit from Amazon, and I will put a link down below in the description. I also needed a motherboard, so I bought a B450 motherboard from Asus. Now, I could have saved a tiny bit by going with a B320 or 350 motherboard, but I definitely wanted the option to do a bit of overclocking, and I also wanted to make sure that the processor would be supported out of the box. What did surprise me was that the BIOS version that it came with was very old. In fact, it was the very first release version. So as always, if it has a BIOS, we're going to flash it. The latest version is from March 2019, and according to the information on the website, it does contain support for upcoming processors. Very likely this is for the 3000 series of CPUs. So I've been using this CPU for a few days, and it's clear that AMD has improved greatly compared to the AMD FX processors. I have a few Cinebench results here comparing the Ryzen 3 2200G with some of the older Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge processors, and look at that, it does really well. Also in Cinebench we can see the impact of having the faster memory. But now let's turn to the graphics side of things. The 2200G comes with Vega 8 graphics and 512 shader units clocked at 1100 MHz. It uses the DDR4 RAM for graphics memory, and in the BIOS you have the option for the amount of video RAM to be allocated automatically, but I prefer to have it locked in, so I set it to 3 GB, which was the highest option available. Now the processor is fully unlocked, so there are lots of options you can tweak, but I can tell you that the graphics is definitely the weaker aspect compared to the CPU, so I recommend overclocking mostly the graphics part. The BIOS has an option that makes this really straightforward. Asus calls it GPU boost. So the default clock is 1100 MHz, and you can set it to turbo, which raises it to 1350 MHz, but there's also an extreme option which clocks the graphics at 1500 MHz. So that's a really healthy overclock, and it worked without any issues. So yeah, I really appreciate how simple it is to unlock a bit of extra performance with this processor. So all you have to do is make sure you set the faster memory profile and then enable GPU boost, and you will get a significant performance boost compared to the BIOS default settings. So in this chart we're having a look at the performance impact of overclocking the integrated graphics. The left bars, that is the default clocks, and on the right side we've got the extreme GPU boost enabled, which will overclock the graphics to 1500 MHz. And once again, we can see a really nice performance boost. And here we have some more side-by-side footage. So what I'm trying to show here is the difference between just loading the BIOS defaults. So we've got the RAM running at 2400 MHz without any GPU overclock. And on the right side, we've enabled the faster memory profile. So we're running at 3200 MHz and also GPU boost activated with an overclock to 1500 MHz. And you can clearly see that it makes a significant difference. And now we're going to have a look at some games. First up, we're going to have a look at some more modern games. These are definitely quite demanding for these integrated graphics, so we're going to run them at 720p. I will put the details and the settings down below in the video.
I always thought I'd die surrounded by loved ones. That Marcos is going to be next.
Time to get Phoebe out of here.
Alexios, I'm here! Untie me!
The battle happens quick. Be ready. Getting some damage over here.
Enemy taken down. Reloading. I am taking some damage. More enemies down. Using grapple. I have been down. Over bumps, 100. Keep right over crest. 110 over bumps, 200. Right 3. Into left 6. Left 6 through dip, water splash.
Now slightly older games run really well with the integrated graphics, so we can run them at 1080p. And once again, I will put the name of the game down below, including the settings that I used for testing.
Left, keep in. Keep right. Medium left long onto gravel. Crest jump. Medium right. 150. Keep left into long medium right. Into medium left, keep in. Medium right.
Hello? Hello? Is someone there? This could be a way through.
So guys, yeah, I really like this 2200G processor. The value is definitely there. The processor on its own is pretty decent, and although 4 cores is starting to become a little bit of a weak spot in some modern games, it's still going to run most games pretty well. But the real highlight is the integrated graphics, which is much better compared to what Intel is offering. And at 720p, you can definitely run all the latest and greatest games. You might have to dial down the details a little bit, but they should run just fine. Now, if you're into older games, maybe you've got a huge list of games in Steam that you haven't played in a while, or some games like I do, never played actually, these older games will run perfectly fine at 1080p. Once again, you might have to avoid the ultra settings, but stick to medium and high, and it should run fairly well. The power consumption is also pretty good, and apart from gaming, the 2200G is excellent for media playback with the integrated graphics accelerating all the video decoding tasks. So yeah guys, I'm eager to hear your thoughts, and also what sort of projects would you like to see on the channel to do with the Ryzen platform. I definitely want to do another project comparing the 2200G with used parts that you can buy from AliExpress. So the idea is that although DDR4 prices have come down, DDR3 is still cheaper, and so are used motherboards, processors and graphics cards. So I'm really keen to find out how much faster a build from AliExpress ends up being when you spend the same amount of money as on the 2200G system. I will see you next week with our weekly Friday video, but keep an eye out for Tuesday. Sometimes there will be a bonus video. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Give it a like and click on that notification bell. And I shall see you soon with another one.